Good afternoon. Welcome to this afternoon's Insight Stage presentations. And remember, all of these can be watched online post-event. They're available as an on-demand service as well as being live streamed. We have them on demand, so you can go back and check any presentation you'd like. But to start us off now, we've got Dan Sutherland. Dan is the CEO of Biarri EMI, and Dan is here to talk about mathematical mining. So welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Sean. So, as Sean mentioned, I'm the CEO of Biarri EMI, which is Energy Mining and Infrastructure, and I'm here today to talk to you about mathematical mining. So, as we go through today, I'll start off with just the obligatory company overview and spend a minute or two on that, and then very quickly get into commercial mathematics. What is it? Why do we need it in a general industry sense? And then getting into why it's relevant to mining and what's the benefit it can bring in a mining context. And then I'll get down to some mining examples that we're currently doing or have just done recently with some of our customers, and then moving on to a bit around the future, tying into the future of mining. So without further ado, getting into the obligatory group and company overview. So Biarri is a group of companies focused around commercial mathematics in multiple different industries. So we do a lot of work in things like supply chain, retail, rail. So rail, we do a lot of planning and scheduling, and then getting into networks where we do fiber optic network design for customers like Google Fiber in the US, AT&T, NBN back here at home. And then where I'm speaking from is Biarri EMI, which is Energy Mining and Infrastructure. So really taking that knowledge, capability, and application from all of those different industries and applying it to the resources and heavy asset industries. And just on that, across the group, we're around 140 people, started in Australia, but with a global presence now in Europe and America. So, commercial mathematics and analytics. What is it and why do we do it? Rather than going through this is just the standard, I guess, Gartner-esque types of analytics, rather than going through them and telling you all about them, I thought I'd go through and give a few examples of where we've applied this in other industries, and then how it's relevant to the mining industry, which you'll see, and some of the benefits we've seen. So starting off with descriptive analytics, really, a quick example on that is IVMS vehicle and driver safety analysis. So looking at using the IVMS data and having safety impacts from that. So one of the key findings from that was we noticed that there was a huge spike in the driving that's happening at the start of the day and at the end of the day, when really that's your critical times around dusk and dawn, where you've got the highest safety risk in field driving on remote roads. One of the other benefits we saw from that, using that same data set, was that the vehicles were actually underutilized. So just with a really short and simple project, we were able to come up with millions of dollars of fleet utilization savings costs. So moving on to diagnostic, a couple of examples here. So failure root cause analysis is a really classic one, where you see a failure and you're working out what caused it so that you can prevent that in the future. Resource consumption analytics. This is something we do in lots of different industries and have just started doing in the mining industry as well, around wheel wear and fuel consumption. So obviously hot topics in the mining industry. If you can have percentage savings on those things, it makes a big difference to your overall cost. Getting into predictive analytics, so now really getting to, rather than looking at what's happened and getting insights from that for how to change the future, looking at predicting what happens in the future. Obviously one of the key things there is demand forecasting. Any industry that's a retail-based industry, you always have that element of demand forecasting. What's the demand coming up, and how do you predict that from a mathematical point of view rather than a purely gut feel point of view? Short-term failure prediction. So this is an example that's actually quite relevant to mining as well, and I can't share the customer, but some really great examples in mining of crusher prediction. So looking at a gyratory crusher, predicting when you're coming up to a failure due to, for example, rebar getting caught in the crusher, so that you can stop the crusher, remove the rebar, and prevent a larger failure event happening. and then getting into prescriptive analytics. So really here looking at, rather than saying what will happen, saying what should you do, and that can take into account a lot of the randomness that you consider in the what will happen side of things as well. So a few examples quickly from different industries. Optimized task scheduling, which I'll talk a bit more about in the mining context coming up, but also relevant in a lot of different ways as well. So we do lots of work with Coles and Origin of task scheduling at facilities and at distribution centres. So also applying that in the mining context to your maintenance centres, to your plants, all that sort of thing. Automated network design. So this is a huge one where we see, examples of 80% reduction in the time taken to create a design. We're currently applying this in the oil and gas sector as well to look at the design of not just the gathering network, but also the water, electrical, civil networks that are required to support that. Again, some obvious analogies there to an underground mining context. And then workforce management is pretty much multi-industry across every industry where you've got a large workforce, being able to better roster and optimize the rosters of people to both improve the outcomes for the people and lower the overall cost. So why is this relevant to mining? I mean, I guess at its core, really what we do with this commercial mathematics and the benefits that you get from it can be broken down into doing more with the same amount, which results in increased revenue, or doing the same amount with less, which results in decreased costs, or in some cases doing more with less, which gives you both of these benefits, and then also doing it better, which often comes up with a benefit of increased safety. So obviously some of the examples I've touched on there, a huge safety component. If we look at task scheduling, gives you a lot of benefits from safety as well through being able to encode some of those rules into your optimization or into your algorithm so that you know that they're always respected, or get alerts when they're not respected. So what are some of the things we're doing in mining at the moment? So up here on the screen is just a screenshot of one of the users of our product, Cavern, at Telfer. So this is an optimized shift planning and short interval control tool, which really fits into that task scheduling component that I talked about. So very focused on the load and haul side of things, and focused on having the ability to increase TKMs and also then increase your utilization and decrease idle time and bring visibility to the mine site, and obviously the safety component that I just spoke about. So that's the example I was just talking about. A few other things that we're doing at the moment. So algorithmic pit to port value chain optimization. So really looking at how do you move your product from your mine to the port, and what are the timings and sequencing that you do that in across that whole value chain to maximize your outcomes from a range of different metrics. That could be reducing cost. It could also be increasing your cash position or your EBIT position. And again, that's something that is not unique to the mining industry, but is of critical value in the mining industry when you look at what impact percentage changes can have. And then that workforce management and rostering that I spoke about earlier, obviously with the remote situation in mining, it only makes this more important and only makes the costs associated with this higher. So the ability to reduce those costs is worth a huge amount to a mining context. And then just quickly before I finish up, talking to what's the next horizon. So really, as we've all heard about over the past couple of days, we're getting more and more data, and we're capturing it from more sources. We're capturing larger amounts of data at higher frequencies. And so what are people doing with that data? The more data we have, the harder it becomes for a person to be able to understand that. So really where I see the future of mathematics in mining going is a further uptake of that, so that the machines are helping make the decision for you, and a lot more analytics enabled web applications and things like that to help make those decisions, rather than a person trying to scroll through even hundreds of megabytes of data. Is impossible for a person to scroll through in a timely fashion. If you take that up to gigabytes or terabytes of data, it becomes even harder. So really that increased adoption of that mathematical algorithm being able to help make those decisions across a whole range of different areas, whether it is failure prediction, scheduling, rostering, any of those areas. Thank you all for listening.
some questions. Any questions for Dan?
So Dan, one of the advantages of mathematics is you've got an empirically proven optimal case.
Yep.
Are you able to use the fact that it's coming from mathematical laws to be able to state this is the optimal, and does that give you advantages in being able to sell a particular solution?
Yeah, great question. We can in some cases. What we find though is looking at what's theoretically optimal and what's actually optimal for an optimal outcome for the customer, because often those two things don't align with each other quite perfectly, in that a theoretically optimal solution may have absolutely zero buffer or give in the solution, whereas in the real world you know that something's going to go wrong, you're going to need some form of slack in there. So knowing when you want to chase that theoretically optimal solution and when you want to chase a good solution or a great solution that also has some practicality elements to it is really important.
Quick follow-up, just on that point, do you find that there are certain areas where the mathematical modelling component, like scheduling, is relatively straightforward, whereas the other problems that frankly are just not ready yet because there's not a good model for the system in question?
Could you give an example of one of the things you were talking about there?
Well, I think maybe related to the last one. I mean, most engineering problems you do have a good understanding of the performance envelope of,
yep.
of the equipment, but in other areas there might be a need for more empirical characterizations. You just don't know what the failure regimes are.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's more exploratory, or I think you use the term descriptive.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. So often, even though I broke it down into those 4 different areas, often an individual project or solution will bring in 3 or all 4 of those different areas into actually creating the solution. So you'll often be going there and understanding the problem first and understanding all of that data around it, helping bring that understanding to light before getting into optimization, for example.
As part of your service, you're able to do that modeling component.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, definitely. So we have a lot of consultants working with us as well that do a lot of that and then help get the web application in play, or even just get the once-off insight that might be needed. For example, if you're looking at a facility location problem, you don't need a tool to run that. You just want the insight.
And when you say then, I guess the future horizon, this big data, all this data coming in, for your understanding of mining and the mathematics, what do you think is going to be the biggest change we'll see in mining in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think the way in which we design mines will change hugely. There's so much data available to contribute to mine design that isn't really being used in a huge way in that design phase. I think a lot of the things that we talk about are very operational, but really where the big value comes long term is being able to have those step changes in the design of a mine.
Okay.
What's that, sorry?
That comment, can you give me an example? Like if it's designed from state?
So, for example, if I use an example of oil and gas or fiber optic network design, there where we're ultimately designing a network, we're able to see 80% improvements in the time taken to create the design, which enables our users to create a lot more scenarios and evaluate a lot more options of how they could do things differently. So, for example, some of the things John Wellborn was talking about in the keynote yesterday around what impact does it have if you change the size of the tunnels that you have, because you've got a fully automated mine and you don't need people access. How does that change your overall cost? Being able to run those scenarios facilitates that step change in cost.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Obviously a hot topic. Thank you. Our next presenter is Lee Hilliyer. Lee is the Managing Director of MMD, and Lee's here to talk about Mine Smarter, Load Quicker. So welcome, Lee.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Lee Hilliyer. I'm the Managing Director of MMD Australia, and I'm here today to talk to you about how to mine smarter and load quicker. So just a very short disclaimer. So today I'm going to talk about why we've got a problem, how MMD have solved it, and how mining companies are reaping the rewards. So we look at surface mining from its origins in 1909 with the very first steam shovel, 1912 and 1941. Not a lot of change there. And then we move forward into the modern day, again, 1909, 1969 and 2019. It's a period of 110 years with no change, no difference. And some would say, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yet other industries have propelled into the future. But sometimes change is good. But if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So what is the problem?
All around the world, the shovel is regarded as an essential investment for mining. However, when partnered with trucks, their efficiency drops drastically. Safety being paramount, the shovel is forced to wait while each truck maneuvers into position. Loading raw material directly into the truck is challenging. A fluctuating volume of material in each shovel bucket and the size of rocks results in a variable fill factor for each truck. This can lead to truck bed damage or underutilization. The number of shovel swings and the time required to fill each truck becomes unpredictable due to the material digging process. The impact of irregular loading wreaks havoc with fleet cycle times, with trucks getting congested or too spread out, leaving the shovel waiting again. These issues are repeated time and time again with each truck.
So how do we change what we've always done to not get what we've always got? We change how we do it. We decouple the shovel from the truck. So today I'm going to talk about the MMD fully mobile surge loader. So what would be on your surface mining wish list? Increase production? Reduce the number of trucks? Reduce OPEX? Let us show you how. The truck and shovel are two of the most underutilized pieces of equipment in any surface mine. MMD have changed that by decoupling the shovel from the truck. So why is it underutilized? Shovel waiting on trucks, truck bunching, and inefficient and inconsistent fill factors. MMD have the solution.
But now, introducing the very latest innovation from MMD, the fully mobile surge loader. A mobile feeder designed to tackle intermittent loading in truck and shovel operations. Firstly, trucks are spotted using the latest 3D cameras and RFID technology, or simple mechanical markers to assist truck alignment. Trucks are loaded faster than when they're loaded directly by the shovel, in a method that is also safer and reduces wear on the truck fleet. The shovel operator continues loading unrestricted while the hopper stockpiles material ready for delivery to the trucks, maximizing shovel utilization to nearly 95%. The surge loader provides the optimum fill level to every truck via material level detectors. This ensures each truck is hauling at maximum capacity. With the shovel working continuously and the trucks spotting and loading faster, the system efficiency increases. The answer to truck and shovel inefficiencies is here. The MMD fully mobile surge loader. MMD, Green Mining Solutions.
And some of you might be thinking, hey, great, fancy animation, seen it all before, you can show anything on animation. But this is actually a hybrid of two existing technologies. And for MMD, it's not anything new.
In 2004, MMD successfully implemented a feeder loading system in Colombia. A dragline fed the MMD stations, which were capable of loading several trucks simultaneously. A solution which is still in operation today. The 2013 fully mobile sizer, perfected in China, provides the basis for making the surge loader a mobile solution. The integrated hopper, feeder and twin crawlers all feature on the new MMD design. Proven technology from Colombia and China combined in the fully mobile surge loader.
And to let you in on a little secret, we're actually going to have our first unit in operation in 3 months' time. So we're pretty excited about that. So just to summarize some of the production advantages, faster loading. We can fill a 300-ton truck in just 75 seconds. That's about 95 seconds from truck entering to exiting. 4 ton of material every single second. Increased production rates. So typically an increase up to 40% in production. Many people talk about 1-2%. This is 40% increase in production. Or maintain your current production rates and remove trucks from your fleet, reducing your OPEX. And increase the utilization of the shovel to up to 95%. It reduces the truck weighting and bunching. We can load a truck in 1.5 minutes or 95 seconds. The equivalent truck and shuffle method takes over 3 minutes to load a truck. A reduction of 50%. We can do it in half the time. So safety advantages. It reduces the risk of injury to the truck driver. It places him further away from the shovel. And it removes shock loading of the trucks. And many of you would have saw John Welburn's presentation earlier yesterday, showing the truck driver shaking around in the truck. This is happening every minute of every day in every mine in the world. And precision loading of the trucks. So we will know every truck will be filled with a very, very small accuracy. And there's no spotting or reversing required. So it paves the way for a fully autonomous mining system. So just some key advantages of the surge loader. Increase your production rates up to 40%. Fewer trucks required for the same production rates. An improved fill factor to 95%. And better utilization of the existing equipment. Do more with what you've got. Less wear and tear on the trucks. Improve safety. Place the truck driver further away from the truck and no shock loading. And it's fully autonomous. MMD, we're the market leader in mining innovation, and we're changing the future of mining. Any questions? Yes.
Roughly how many analysis of different mine operations have we done, and what have we found within those to date?
Good question. We've probably done maybe 20, 25 simulations, and we found probably the range is anything from about 15% as a minimum up to 40% and beyond as a maximum. And the way that we work is we give each mining company a questionnaire, they give us the data, we do a simulation, we give them the feedback, and they do the analysis. Most large mining companies have done the analysis and they can't break our figures. Our figures are very conservative, and yeah, we're very excited about this. Yes. This is a prelude to a presentation that I'll be doing on the main stage later, and we are looking to implement this into an ore sorting system. So the complete solution would be sizing, ore sorting and loading. And yeah, if you guys are going to hang around, I'll do a presentation later on that whole system.
Right. Okay, thanks, Lee.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is Dr. Neal Harries. Dr. Neal Harries is the Managing Director of Mining Segments APAC at Hexagon, and he's here to talk to us about shaping smart change. So welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So I guess I've got 10 minutes speed dating to tell you about Hexagon, as I've often used one of the biggest technology companies you've never heard of. So, moving to Hexagon at a glance. So, as I said, it's one of the larger technology companies you've probably never heard of. So, more than 20,000 employees. Obviously, that's not in the miners, just in the mining segment. So, in mining, we have about 680 at the moment. So, very R&D focused, very much based on monitoring solutions and technology and IT solutions. So, while 10 to 12% of net sales go into R&D, in mining it's about 15 to 18%. So we're a bit more focused in R&D and mining at the moment. And very strong financials. Big company. In terms of the Hexagon businesses, I wouldn't even know the whole breadth of the businesses that we get involved in. And I go to these shows and I learn more about the things that Hexagon does. And so for the last show I went to, I found out that 91% of commercial aircraft use a Hexagon technology in their development and creation, and 85% of cars use Hexagon technology. So that's on the metrology division, so all those very fine measurements. If you want to look at curvature of the blades that are going into your turboprops and so on, that's where those metrology solutions get used. In terms of the geospatial landscape, we're in that part with mining, so geosystems, so Leica Geosystems is you'll see a lot of that survey equipment. That's one of our solutions. Precision intelligence, agriculture, geospatial, so if you look at iPhones and you basically go into the Google Maps equivalent of the iPhones, a lot of those city maps come from our solutions. So we provide that data to Apple. And then mining and safety and infrastructure. So I'll focus more on mining. So integrated digital mine solutions. So again, like I've seen this recurring theme through the conference has been great, is this whole thing about digital solutions and data. It's obviously coming, and certainly we intend to be at the forefront of development of applications and solutions for you guys involved in that. If you look at the timeline, so what you might have heard of, where you've heard of Hexagon Mining. So MineSight was one of the first companies to ever develop general mine planning packages, so using computers to basically do mine planning. So there's a company out of Tucson. So if you worked in the US or a lot of the Americas, you'll basically have used MineSight to do your mine planning packages. Not so used in Australia, but dominant, as I said, in the Americas. A lot of guys would have probably first come into a Hexagon company by working with Tritronics. So Tritronics developed dragline solutions out of Brisbane. So they were widely used in the industry. And then Leica purchased Tritronics and Jigsaw, so that was the fleet management systems. DevX he probably is one of the groups that we don't hear much of, mainly working in the underground solutions. And then SafeMine is the collision avoidance technology that is widely used around the world. And then MyPlan and Guardvant, MyPlan looking at enterprise solutions and introduction of fleet management systems, low-cost systems, and then Guardvant is probably the #1 provider of fatigue solutions in the industry at the moment. So why you never heard of Hexagon is, for a long time, Hexagon's acquired companies and they left them alone. That changed in 2015 when they finally decided, well, let's bring these companies together, and rather than focus on just buying companies, let's integrate these companies and start working on R&D to basically get better solutions from these guys working together. So that has very much been the focus of Hexagon Mining is, yes, they still will acquire companies, and I have no doubt if I give this presentation a year from today, there'll be another company or two that we'll have acquired. But the focus with the R&D is starting to integrate those different pieces. How do we basically help the industry through that integration? So the Hexagon's mission, delivering digital solutions to improve productivity and quality across manufacturing, infrastructure, safety, and mobility applications, and mining being one of those. The vision, to aspire to be the leader in creating autonomous connected ecosystems. So for those who went to my talk yesterday, I mentioned that this ACE, this autonomous connected ecosystems. So just like we've seen many presentations about, we get more and more of this data, gigabytes, terabytes of information. The fact is we know we can't analyze that data. And so what our focus is, and was a lot of R&D focuses in, how do we provide autonomous ways to automate that analysis of that data to give you information to provide those solutions. So when we look at the mining, our commitment is creating safer, more productive mines by developing integrated life of mine solutions that optimize design, planning, and operations. So when I look at the breadth of digital solutions, and obviously we can't go through them all, pick one that you're interested in, we probably do it. So while there's software, particularly just on the mine planning, then a lot of the stuff is software and hardware. One of the advantages of having a larger group is that we obviously have integrated hardware development teams. So at the board level, electronics, we basically working at robust industrial solutions for a number of different industries, and we get to use that in mining. And all this goes into this enabled enterprise platform. So that's one of the big focuses. How do we bring all this information together? How do we serve that to you guys as customers so you can get value from it? So a couple of quick case studies that come out of the last 12 months. So on the mine planning side, basically 35 million was raised in basically looking at a redesign of the mine planning, so optimizing what they can do. Another one with the Jigsaw fleet management systems and looking at health monitoring. They basically increased production by 11 million tonnes and come from monthly trips to the fueling station. So that's one of the big things that we see is if you can optimize, you can basically massively increase productivity. And by fueling is one of the things that they do. And then on the safety side, obviously, the collision avoidance, that SafeMine system, the collision avoidance is probably the most used system in the world. In January, it was up to 38,000 vehicles. There's been a couple of big sales since, so I fully expect we'll hit that 40,000 vehicle mark in terms of active user sometime later this year. And obviously, as well as making things safer, avoiding metal-on-metal contacts has a significant economic impact to a mine as well, which we're trying to help people. So there's a nice little quote that I'll let you read that. When I look at the collision avoidance, what we're seeing is, for the guys who know a little bit about it, with the immersion, you have different levels of control. So we're fully developed at level 9. So we're starting to take control of the break-in of the truck. So there's a mine where that's been rolled out, a second mine, both in South Africa. We're probably a little bit ahead of the game in terms of the government pushing those regulations. So we're starting to see those solutions, and I have no doubt we'll start to develop some and see some of those solutions of active braking and control of trucks in the coming months or years in Australia as well. So obviously, big support teams. We have to be 24/7 around the world, follow the sun. Highly educated, multifaceted staff. We need to have mining people, and we have plenty of mining people. And best knowledge-based system in the business. And that's really, when you look at the R&D, that's one of the key things that we've been building up is that knowledge base. And that's where our future is going to be. Same thing with service and training. What we find is that, yes, the mines can buy these technologies, but we've got to help with the change management, the training, otherwise you won't get the most from those systems. And whether it's helping with consulting, that's something that, again, we spend a lot of effort in building up those services at the moment. Last but one slide. So if you look at where the offices are, and it's obviously already a little bit out of date, so we have a new office that's opened up in Newcastle, and also we have a new office which is going to open up in Colombia, another one in Balikpapan. But as I said, I'm sure we're closer to 700 employees. I can't keep track of where all we are. Thank you for listening. 5 seconds left.
Thanks, Neal. Any questions before we finish this particular session? No questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Neal. Cheers. Straight into our next presentation, we've got John Ansley. John's Chief Operating Officer at Commit Works. So we haven't finished just yet, so 2 more to go. And John's here to talk about IT and OT digital futures. So welcome, John. Great.
G'day everybody. I think maybe before I go into my slides, I'll just give you a bit of background on what we do as a company and who I am. So maybe it gives me a tiny bit of credibility when I start talking about some of this stuff. As a company, CommitWorks is focused on frontline planning, short interval control, and we're really looking to help our customers get everybody on the same plan before a shift starts and make sure that during a shift, everybody can see what's going on and they can update the plan accordingly across the shift. So myself, I've joined CommitWorks about 8 months ago as their Chief Operating Officer, which is a bit of a fallacy of a title because I'm also the CTO and the CIO and the product manager and head of HR and head of a whole pile of other stuff. But that's the life in a startup. My background, I've been in the mining game and the technology game pretty much all my life. I was the inaugural CIO for Rio Tinto Iron Ore. I've also worked for SAP, for Mincom, for BHP, and a range of other companies around mining and technology. Cool. So what I wanted to talk to you about, and this sort of speaks to my history, is where do you actually get payback from technology investments? And so many of the technology investments that are made, in my view, in the wrong areas. And if you look at where certainly some of the biggest mining companies in the world have spent hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars on back office projects where they're looking to standardise the way they do something in finance or standardise the way they're doing something in procurement or HR, that's really working around the edges of value in my view. And so if you look at back office transformations, you're really not going to do anything to a mining company by playing in that space. You're going to do something to a mining company when you do something near where the mining occurs. And if you compare the differences between these investments and you look at the payback periods, which I'll go into shortly, there's a vast difference if you put your money in the right place. So the other thing that's really critical, and I saw this, a great example of this was when I was with Rio Tinto. We were looking at how long it took for a mine planner to become really effective at using a new software tool and understanding a new ore body model that they didn't know. And it was taking anywhere up to 18 months to get these people really productive. Problem was they were turning over every 9 months. So when you have problems like that, you've got to make sure that whatever technologies you choose are really easy to engage with you can embed them into your processes and make sure people can continue to use them very easily. So the question I'm asking is pretty obvious down the bottom. Are you investing in that area where IT and OT meet, which is typically where mining happens? The digital transformation fairy stories. You don't have to try and make too much sense of the graph. I'll give you a quick summary. Basically, somewhere around 75% of all transformation programs are considered a failure. So there's roughly 25% of them are outright failures, and 50-odd% of them are seen as failures because they either didn't hit the payback, they cost more than they were supposed to, or they took longer than they were supposed to, or they didn't deliver the functionality that they were supposed to. So it's a fairly high failure rate. Payback periods too, on average, are more than 3 years. So there's a long time to wait before you get your money back. And most of these large digital transformation programs, the business cases spend a lot of time trying to work out how they can convince the executive and potentially the board to spend the money. So they create some sort of payback period that's usually got to be, to meet their hurdle rates, sub 3 year. And you see the evidence is there that they don't get the payback as they say they're going to. So this is very cool graphics here, so don't be too spun out by it. These are the areas where I'm seeing the big areas of spend. So there's a hell of a lot of spend that happens up at those corporate IT type systems, the global standard systems that are pushed across organisations. And then there's inevitably some really good spend that happens down at the operational technology level, where you're putting technologies on top of your equipment so that you can maximise utilisation, availability and all those sorts of things and get visibility of what's going on. But in that section there with the pictures, where work gets done, where people are developing a plan to go and execute a shift to meet the targets that are being set, most of that work is actually done with whiteboards and spreadsheets. So if you go into most mines today, you'll see there's a lot of, some of them are really sexy looking whiteboards, right? They've been built by some very expensive consultants for you that say all the right things and show you what you've got to do. But department by department, everyone's planning individually. So they don't have a way of integrating that plan and getting an agreement on the plan before they move forward into their shifts. So this is, to me, this is the area where I think the big question is. This is where, in my view, people should be spending money. When Paul, the CEO from Works, contacted me to say, hey, I know you're a senior IT mining type guy, would you be interested at all in joining our company? And I looked at the product. It seemed to me this is that last mile of technology that hadn't been solved in any of the mining companies I've dealt with. And there's an inherent sort of pushback that happens at this level. If it's someone from head office saying, trust me, I've got a great idea, this won't hurt at all, there's a lot of pushback that comes from the site. So you have to have a level of credibility to operate in this level between that IT system and the OT system, because you're dealing with the people at the site who typically don't want to hear what head office has to say. So it's a really, really interesting one. You've got this massive opportunity. Tiny percentage improvements in this area lead to millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions in payback. So you've got to make sure that you get it in there. You've got to make sure it's credible. Whoever goes in with the message is credible. But then there's also that requirement to make sure that you satisfy all the stakeholders back up into the corporate hierarchy. So it's a really interesting and challenging place to work. Getting it right, though, is something that's going to give massive returns. One of the BCG report that came out recently was really interesting. It looked at, what are you measuring? Are you measuring the right thing? Are you measuring so many things you don't know what to do? Who's getting what update? So the senior execs need certain updates. The guys down at the front line need different information. They don't understand what the execs want to know. They need to understand something simple like a metric around metres drilled, or the amount of ore moved, or whatever it has to be. So you've got to be able to make sure you can satisfy all of those requirements. So you need a system that's going to be able to track KPIs that are applicable at the corporate level, at the mine management level, and also in the field. I love this one in the middle here, which was Mark Cutifini from Anglo. This is a couple of years old, this one. But it was interesting that his view is that we're damned because we're not spending anywhere near the amount of money we need to be spending on innovation. And on top of that, if we didn't get our act together, that somebody's going to come in and get our act together for us. And he gives the example of, is it going to be someone who's got innovation in their DNA, like a GE, or is it going to be a Google, or is it going to be, who knows, who's going to come in and say, we can actually get you guys sorted out. So the integration challenge needs this increased connectivity. And that's, if you think about the diagram I showed before, that's exactly this layer, this IT-OT layer, where you sit a solution in that space and it talks to everything above and below. So it's talking to all of your corporate systems and it's talking to all your operational technology systems. So it becomes the real enabler, which everybody's pretty much missing because they're not pulling together that information. They're not making linkages between those corporate systems and the operational technology systems. So what do? We work on understanding your operation, taking that understanding and implementing a solution which is configured to your needs. So whether that means understanding your KPIs, understanding all of the different departments and processes that you run, modelling those in the system so that you can actually see right across your operation what your plan is. Everybody gets the opportunity to input into that plan, have a commitment meeting, agree to that plan, and then start into the shifts and understand the impact of all the tasks, whether they're dependencies between tasks or whether there are dependencies across shifts. We really focus on this. Probably this is the most important part about the difference between, I think, a good system and a poor system is embedding the right behaviours into your organisation. So it's not enough just to put a technology solution in place. You need to make sure people understand why they need to do what they need to do and they understand the behavioural requirements to get the right outcomes. So we use a maturity model where we engage the people across the workforce and shift them up through a maturity model so they go from being aware to understanding to being able to do and drive this solution into place. As I said before, it's about getting all the departments and all the processes on the same plan. We use a short interval control app, so we have the ability to look at a task across a shift and say, how often do you want to update your progress against that task? So if you were trying to do 100 units across 10 hours and you wanted to measure it every 2 hours to see how you're achieving, and that'll give you the understanding of whether or not you're going to hit target, whether you might need to be pushing something into the next shift. Capturing actuals versus plan. So again, linking back to the KPIs that I mentioned, so you can actually see that you're achieving what you set out to achieve. And also ensuring that you've got that virtuous cycle of the plan, do, check, act, so you get continuous improvement. So the proof for me is in the results we get with our customers. And the customers that we're working with are seeing some really massive increases. And some of these increases you look at and you think, when I've looked at this stuff, some of the payback periods are in days or weeks, not in months or years. And you're seeing a massive, massive improvement. So some of the people we're seeing improvements of 35, 45, 50% in different productivity measures. So we just recently implemented with Biarri EMI in Canada, which is an underground gold mine, and we're already seeing massive improvements with these guys. Some of the figures are not for publication, but they're certainly seen a payback inside the first week of going live. And this is another. It's a fairly common story for us. We're seeing customers who are coming back to us and saying, we haven't been able to hit our production targets for 4 or 5 years, and since they've gone live, they're hitting it on a monthly basis. So now, because they can actually see what they're doing across the mine site, everybody's agreed and committed to a plan up front. We've removed the constraints, so we've been able to show them where there were constraints in their plan. We've shifted those constraints. They're actually driving the productivity they're expecting to get, which is staggering. And when I joined and started looking at the data and seeing what we were getting back from our customers, it was really very hard for me initially to accept these results, because I'm used to the sort of crap you saw at the start of the presentation, which is, you know, no payback in 3 years or 4 years or whatever it is. And all of a sudden you're seeing something where you're having direct impact on the core of your business and you're getting payback extremely quickly. So I'd encourage everybody to have a chat with us. We're here, we have a stand outside, or come and look for us. We're commit.works, no .com, no .au. And you can find us anytime. We'd be more than happy to work with you to help you understand our product and look at how we could potentially add value to any of your operations.
Thanks, John. We might just move straight into the last session. One more session here. We've got Phil Durham. Phil's from Howden, and Phil is the mining product sales manager, and Phil's here to talk to us about total mining ventilation solutions. So welcome, Phil.
Thank you. Okay. Hi there, my name's Phil Durham, mining product sales manager for Howden. Here to just to give a background in terms of what Howden can offer. The last few years we've spent a bit of time and had a bit of a focus on mine ventilation in terms of the products and services that we offer, and we've added to our product range, which has been exciting, and we're sort of trying to set ourselves up in terms of this, the digitalisation and automation age that's sort of coming with mining, that we're going to position ourselves so that we're in a position to be able to offer products and services that are going to be help drive innovation and sort of drive production gains for mines, and yeah. So, sorry man, how do I work this?
The middle green button.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so the main challenges, in terms of what our approach, we're sort of trying to identify the main operating challenges for mines. Their mining plan challenges in terms of how they're operating, how they're producing, how they're managing their equipment and personnel underground. The safety aspect is obviously one of the key drivers. Contaminants and heat load, the local climatic conditions, and compliance with local regulations, and then, you know, with a view that all of that can be done in the most efficient way and the most cost-effective way. And I suppose it's really just driving that there's a link between you know, the automation and digitalisation with the way that a mine produces, and how in terms of how the ventilation is managed, because, you know, if you can use the ventilation, use the air smarter, then that can help the whole operation and increase the production, and so it's a bit of a key aspect of a mining operation. So how would we can do that? You increase safety, production, and also saving money. So with this sort of system, we're talking about ensuring the air quality and the environmental conditions that are underground are safe, and then you know, people that are underground are safe. So the guaranteed regulatory compliance, that's really with the software that I will go on and talk to you about, is you can show regulators that you're compliant with you know, in terms of they have to do annual audits and to show how the ventilation is being managed. Managing the air underground, you know, one of the key things with what we're talking about today with our ventilation solution is that you're able to use the air smarter. You're able to use the air in areas where actual mining activities are taking place. So you're reducing the wastage of air underground, and that's been demonstrated with potential savings of, you know, around 30 to 50%. It's sort of very mine specific for what those savings can be, but that's a sort of typical sort of figures. And then through the using the air smarter, you're able to increase production, which is, you know, you might be able to, because you've got more air capacity available, you might be able to get more vehicles underground to be able to try and get the dirt out. So it's a very important part of it. And then also one of the other, with being able to control the ventilation around it, you're able to reduce the re-entry time after blast. So it's you know, an extra couple of 2 or 3 hours over a shift where you're able to actually operate is, you know, going to bring a lot of extra production there. So our total mine ventilation solution really is there's the equipment side of it, which is the traditional Howden product. There are fans or air heaters or air moving equipment that we've been supplying for over 160 years. And the more recent, in the last few years, the VentSim solutions, there's been this focus on adding to our product range with a view of main ventilation, and this is, we're going to talk about those solutions a little bit, and the services that we bring in terms of maintenance and the installation and turnkey services that is, forms part of what we typically offer. Here's just some sort of building blocks in terms of what it is. So there's VentSim Design, which is a 3D mine simulation tool, which is for anybody that was involved, any sort of involvement in ventilation, I'm sure would have heard of it. It's started in 1993, and it's one of the most widely used pieces of software for 3D mine simulation and for designing the ventilation network. So that's just sort of the building block that the ventilation officers, the consultants, ventilation consultants, they would use to design that aspect of it. Then there's the vent equipment, which is our fans and heaters or heating equipment, mine cooling, refrigeration packages, which are used as part of it. And then the VentSim Connect and VentSim Control are really the sort of new software which are built on the VentSim platform, and it's the VentSim Connect is a manual control system, and we will just sort of move on a little bit. So, we'll go on to. Here we go. So, the VentSim Connect is it's a manual control system where you've got the 3D simulation, and it's you're able to sort of view that in real time. You have the software connected to the sensors, which are all positioned underground, and you're able to see that that data coming through, and you've got the ability to control and manage the fans or regulators that are underground to be able to control the ventilation around those areas. So this is within the VentSim Design software. The VentSim Connect is a really an add-on to that software, and it's built on that platform, and it's a really powerful tool that brings instant data to the user that's positioned on the surface, who can see exactly what's going on and manage his ventilation system effectively, and through coordination with the mine planning and whatever the mining operations are, you can use the ventilation. So you're providing air to the actual places where you're going to be operating during those shifts, and you'll be able to, it's a much cleaner way of managing the ventilation. VentSim Control. So this is the next level of the ventilation solution that we're offering in terms of it's the more fully automated version where there is a lot of processing power that sort of went in behind the engineering suite that drives this software in terms of how to manage the ventilation. We've got you'll be tapping into the tagging and tracking technology that's positioned underground to be able to track personnel and the trucks underground, and that data is coming through. And for each everything that's underground will have a ventilation requirement as part of the regulations. So the software is able to be able to tell exactly who's underground at any given time, and know exactly where they are within the mine, and they know what that ventilation requirement is, and the software can manage that ventilation to make sure that wherever those people are, they're getting the air that's needed, and they're doing that through control of the fans which are underground, or control of fans on the surface, and control of airflow regulators to give them that automatic adjustment for each mining level where the air needs to be. So you've got that. So that using that with the VentSim Control, that's where the software is making the decisions in terms of what fans to start, what fans to slow down or speed up, what airflow, what regulators to reposition, and that's where the power of that sort of software is coming, because it's able to do that sort of dynamically and in real time, taking real time data to be able to make those decisions, and it's a pretty powerful tool. How it's able to do that is through it can adjust the fan speeds, and you're also able to add in scheduling and events. So that is linking into the main planning software, which is like such as Deswick or whatever, who it can feed in that information directly, and those schedules can be built into the software. And that for each of those events, wherever they are, around a blast, when you're blasting, then you can change that ventilation to manage that blast. So for instance, when the blast happens, you can then open up all the regulators, start all the fans, open everything up, and clear out the gas as soon as to get so that people can get underground as quickly as possible. Is there a way to go back? Can you go? Yeah, there we go. I just wanted to sort of go back. I sort of skip through it. So, in terms of monitoring underground, the software is on the surface and is connecting to a whole bunch of, not just the fans and regulators, but we have a suite of products with to be able to monitor a whole host of conditions like the flow and the pressure, temperatures, gas monitoring. We can link into DPM sensors, dust sensors also. We can measure temperature and humidity. With our flow sensors, you can measure as bidirectional, so you can tell whether it can actually tell you what direction the flow is going, which is not as common with some of the flow sensors. And then we have how it sort of does it is with variable speed and frequency drives or fan starter units, which it connects into to be able to start and control those fans. So there was a ventilation as a service, and this is sort of just plugged in, but it's really a sort of offering to in terms of how we package these solutions, to try and move the cost of these solutions from capex towards opex, to try and make it a more a sort of better looking package. And sometimes their mines are not able to get the approvals to proceed, and it's an option which we've had some success in, and it can be important in terms of capex. So this is some of the benefits of the optimization. We've got some things we've already sort of spoken about with the clearing the blast gases faster, reducing the air and energy waste. That's using the air smarter. You're able to remotely validate the airflow surveys, and I think that they calculate and adjust in real time is one of the biggest things in terms of how the software works, and then you're automatically able to increase airflow to the active levels, and then the whole idea is you're increasing the safety because you've got all the real time data in terms of what's coming back up into the software. You're increasing the productions and you're increasing the efficiency because you should be able to use, get the high amount of production with saving a lot of money. So in terms of the VentSim, the data-driven advantage, we've got the 3D graphics engine is one of the the most commonly used programs in the world. The approach has been plug and play approach. With our equipment is easy to install. It's interchangeable with any hardware manufacturer. So it doesn't even in terms of sensors and equipment underground. It's very open in terms of what it can communicate with. It communicate with anything basically, and it's it's not tied to a Howden product, definitely. The integrated software suite. So this is where you've got the upgrade path built in. So the VentSim, going from VentSim design, which is this, the software which the ventilation officers will use, but with the same software and with add-ons to that same software, they're able to keep track of the main ventilation and manage the main ventilation using that. So, I think that brings a cut of those. If a guy, ventilation consultant or off the ventilation engineer, is designing the 3D model with VentSim, and then he's using an alternative system to try and manage the ventilation, then there's got to be cross correlation to make sure that what is being modelled and what was designed is what is being what is being measured and what is being found underground. So you know, using the VentSim software, it gives that link instantly because it's all built on the VentSim platform. Excuse me. So yeah, so there's painting performance. So that's the software that we've been using. There's been a lot of development work on how that software works and how it has been developed. And it's been developed with VentSim Control to be able to give you the automated ventilation control system. And in terms of data analytics, there's been a lot of talk of data analytics and how the data is going to be used. Well, with our software, you know, all the information is coming in can be stored, it can be trended, it can be presented in a whole heap of formats, and you know, and then that's open, can be sent on to our adjoining systems. I'll just sort of skip past that because I'm sort of running out of time a little bit. So this is a lot of graphic to sort of show the link between the airflow set points and at the top there, and how at the bottom right you've got the modulation of the airflow with the starters and the VSD controls and the regulators in terms of how you're doing it, and then you've got the system feedback, which is the real-time data underground, giving you those sensors back, giving you that information back up to the software, and this is a typical sort of network of how it would work with the servers and the software on top. And using fiber optic network or LTE or leaky feeder, it can be connected to anywhere in the mine, with sensors being positioned at key locations and regulators being positioned on levels, secondary fans, primary fans on the surface, and it can be used there to tie everything together. And there's tacking and tracking systems also to be able to manage where personnel and assets are. These are some of the typical savings. So this is real data that's came from actual results with VOD, in terms of some of the savings that has been achieved. I should have went through and changed some of the units on it, but it's yeah, you can see that it's, you know, ranging between 34 to 48% or 45%. So that's been 3 real cases where VOD systems have been installed and where those sort of achievements have been seen. And yeah, that's just the sort of summary page of, you know, what it can deliver. It's safe, reliable, efficient, predictable, and controllable. So, thank you very much.
Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. We're a little bit over time, so we might just, that's the last session for today. If we can just go next door to the main room where we've got we've got the work streams in play at the moment, so please proceed there, and thanks for your attendance.